Okay, we're going to try something on Stardream Silver. This is a 105-pound cardstock. Silver iridescent. If you're not familiar with the Stardream line of papers, it has this kind of shimmery surface to them. They're not like a foil, so they're not going to be quite as non-porous as that type of material. This paper is able to be printed on by offset printing processes, so it is a little bit porous, but it's not going to be the same as working on something like a non, coated matte paper or something like that. It does have a little bit of a sealant to it, especially in the Stardream kind of metallic inks that I've found. But we're going to kind of use that to our advantage here. It's not going to be quite as fast drying as like a matte paper, okay? So that being said, we're able to kind of blend our inks a little bit easier on this type of paper, okay? Without going into kind of a special process. Okay, now a lot of you are familiar with Versafine Clair. I'm not. I've used a lot of this just plain Versafine before, okay? But I'm going to use the Clair for my first time ever, not just this pad, I'm talking ever, just to give it a spin and to check it out. I'll try to find my groove with it as much as I can, if I need to find a groove with it. And pigment inks will dry on this type of cardstock, as well as dye-based inks. I've used a lot of dye-based ink on this before as well, and it kind of resisted a little bit. Like I said, it beads, okay, but we're going to try to take advantage of that aspect of it. Okay, so the Versafine Clair, like I said, I've never used it before, so I'm really not aware with its characteristics. Pigment ink for fine details. What's the difference between just the regular one and the Clair? I have no idea. I don't know. A lot of people get caught into kind of name recognition and whatnot. I don't do that. I just kind of go off of what I find works, okay? Now, hopefully, it's one and the same with everyone, but we'll find out here, okay? At least in this one application. Okay, so I think that I am going to go with, I could go with the Stays On pigment here too on this paper. It might dry a little bit fast though, but we'll see. Okay, so what I'm going to do is this is going to be a really simple composition. I just have 3 stamps that I'm going to be working around. This one right here might be a really tough one for you to find. You can go for any type of sculptural figure or whatnot, or do another type of figure here, but this is by the Moon Rose in New York. Okay, now I've used this a couple times in the past, and I don't know, someone a few years ago was looking for this one, and they couldn't find it. As far as I know, the Moon Rose, I've heard it's a retail store in New York, and I've heard that they're still open. They sold or something like that. I don't know if this image is available. I have no idea the name of it. I got it at a little bazaar in Lake Elsinore, California, way back when. Okay, but I'm going to stamp her down here, and I want to give this kind of an ethereal type of feel with this moon light kind of cascading down through kind of some cloud formations onto this figure here. I can't do really some clouds in here unless I make this kind of dark, so that's where the blending of tone will come into play. And then I have this word stamp here called Moonlight is Sculpture, Hawthorne quote, Nathaniel Hawthorne, I believe, N. Hawthorne. So, okay, so that being said, I don't know how fast this Versafine is going to dry on here. I would probably use the Brilliance Black and stamp it on down there, but I want to try the Versafine Clair. The Brilliance dries on non-porous cardstock a little bit faster, so it dries on porous cardstock much faster, and it'll dry on here very quickly. But let's use the Clair. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Thinking that this isn't going to dry very fast, I'm going to put some white pigment ink down where approximately where I think this moon is going to stamp out. We'll stamp it fairly high, I guess. Well, maybe I'll come down a little bit lower. I might have some of these tree limbs in here too, kind of off to the side, kind of more as a decorative element. It's not supposed to be super kind of realistic. But let's see where this one goes. Okay. I need to check and see if I bought some Hero Hues pigment ink refill, because mine is getting kind of dry. Okay, so the white is going to go roughly about right here. Maybe I don't need to do that. I don't know. Well, actually, as far as my light source goes, I do like to have those white, if I am using white, as kind of a representation of light in a scene. So if I just stamp this down here right on top of the silver, silver would show through that, right? And then all my highlights should be in silver because they're reflecting the silver light in here. This is already silver. I don't know. I mean, you can give it a try. Maybe that would look even better. I don't know. And it would kind of bypass the need for using white. I don't know. We'll see how this goes. These are tests, folks. As far as processes go, I was telling someone that when you kind of unlock, some of the possibilities as far as new surfaces and media and surface and media combinations, it's like it opens up a door into all kinds of possibilities that you really need to explore, to fully understand, I don't know, the potential, or just the possibilities of those combinations. So we're talking about pigment inks on shimmery reflective paper, but then there's all kinds of different colors of paper, and there's different brands of, those iridescent styles of paper, and it just, and then when you're talking about using them with different brands of peds, different colors, faster drying brilliance versus slower drying kind of regular inks or dye-based inks, it's just, it gets crazy, doesn't it? But I guess that's always a good thing, that we're never kind of short on things to explore. All right, so the first test here, I liked how that ink went onto the stamp. It seemed, really, it seemed thinner than my Versafine for some reason. I don't know. My Versafine's really quite old, though. I'm not sure if I've even re-inked my Versafine. But it seems thicker. But if this gives me a really good impression, I'm going to be very happy with it. I don't even know how long I really need to hold this down, or if it's going to print out or not on here. Perfect. I love it. Versafine Clair. Really good first impression. Okay. I don't know. Maybe a pun intended. I'm not sure. No pun was intended, though, originally. Okay, so that is beautiful on the silver. And do you see where I've done the white? I mean, it looks a little bit... I probably could have put white all around here, too, to kind of illuminate some of those clouds. But let's see how this goes. Okay, so do I want to stamp her down here right now? I'm wondering. I might want to add in some clouds here first and then stamp her out. Let's stamp her out just so we can see her. And we can kind of reference, where she's going to go. I like the density of this pad too. It's nice and it's really firm. I don't know. It's a nice feeling. Okay. Now this stamp here, right in her face, it kind of gives a messed up impression. It's just this is an old engraving, like a 19th century engraving or something like that. So we're talking about very, very fine lines, and in the plate making process, if they don't get that, really awesome, and the copy of the print has to be really good too, and it probably came out of some copyright-free illustration book or something like that. So we're like so many generations away from the original. So that being said, I'm going to give it a little bit of an extra pressure around the face there. Yeah, it looks okay. I didn't get that arm up there too much, but here's the face area right here. And there's that figure. I'm missing, I don't know why I didn't get that arm part right there, but oh well, so be it. Okay, so I don't know, that clear looks awfully good. I might be saying goodbye to my very faithful Versafine Onyx Black. Huh. Oh well. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so let's keep using this ink right here. I'm almost kind of reluctant to use it this way, like inking in. That is really giving me some really good impressions. Okay, so 100% cotton ball, okay? I don't like the synthetics. The synthetics, to me, after trying it a couple times, were practically useless, okay? As opposed to 100%, which are awesome. Okay, now, when I'm doing this, I'm going with a very light touch at first, like this. And then I'm kind of, I always kind of liken it to applying kind of like a powder, okay? Now see, I'm not trying to get this whole area just filled in. Everyone wants to color in like this, and they always tell me, oh, it's harder than it looks. Well, it's because you're trying to do like the whole page with one inking or something like that. Watch what I'm doing right here. I'm just kind of staying in one area for a while. You just work one application at a time, okay? So I did this little streak across there, and you see how it's building up like that? And you get that really great transition of tone like that, okay? Now watch this around my moon, okay? You see I'm just staying in this one area. I am smearing my image, okay? Because it's not dry. It'd be a little bit drier if I used the, the brilliance, but okay. So, I'm smearing that, like I said, that moon when I'm doing that, but now, maybe around that moon, cloud with moon impression, maybe I'll dab like this instead, but watch where I'm just staying in that one area like that. You're working, think about it like you're working a series of, I don't know, maybe 2" by 2" areas, or like a 1" by 3" area at a time, okay? And look at that nice transition, okay? Or those transitions right there, okay? Now, I usually just work it on one side and I'll flip it over and go to the other side. Or you can just do the top like this, and then go up here and continue on the top, or whatever you want to do. But now look at this, I'm just staying in this one area. I'm blending it across. If you want to make something easy to do, then you make it an easy process. Don't turn an easy process into a harder one by trying to do something that, would take, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes into a 2-minute process. People go like this, and it's like, they just, I don't know, they just do something like this, and they're going, oh my gosh, it's not blending in. Or I'm so heavy-handed. Well, just don't be so heavy-handed, Take a lighter touch, and just imagine, like I said, that you're applying kind of a powdery type of application. I mean, people wouldn't do that if they were applying makeup, on someone, or, like a child or something like that. You're using a very delicate touch like this, okay? See, like that? And watch this as I transition it outward. Like that, okay? So it's denser in the middle, lighter on the edge. Denser on the outside, lighter in the middle, okay? All right. I keep saying that because I do get comments about it, kind of being a harder process. And I know exactly what people are doing. Which is kind of understandable because, you know, people are used to filling in whole areas with like a pen and getting it instantly, as opposed to using kind of, you know, a nice range of tones from one color of ink. Okay, they're not used to using kind of um, drier versions of black to get a 5% gray, for example. Okay, so learn to do that, and it's not just scenes. Okay, you'll really, you can have, I don't know, maybe, let's say you have 20 colors, okay, of ink pads. Now, I know a lot of you buy 20 pads at one time, you know, or something like that. That's one purchase, you know, for some of you. But those 20 pads used in kind of a sparser application like this, you can turn those 20 pads into 200 values of colors by getting 10 values from each color that you're using just by using a lighter amount of it, a drier amount of it, okay? So watch this. I can get everything from kind of a, you know, maybe a 30% to 25 to 20 to 10% to 5, and it's all within that 1-inch space right there, okay? So you don't need, I didn't need, you know, so many variations of, say, gray to get them. Well, I'm just using my Versafine Clair black. Okay, now here's what I notice here. When I touch this over here, the edges are getting my fingerprints because I'm removing ink, okay? So on the Stardream, this pigment ink is really starting to build up, and it is remaining wet, okay? But don't let that be a struggle, because that's the thing that also, see, here's my fingers right here. That's the thing that's allowing us to spread it around, right? So we want that. We want that characteristic of that ink. Wetter the ink, easier it is to spread. Okay, so here I'm just working this down as I go. Okay, see, I'm not re-inking this quite so much. I'm just staying with this kind of drier version of it. All right, now I really don't want to smear my figure down here. That's maybe where maybe I should have stamped the figure after I laid the tones in there first, right? Because then I stamp right over it when I'm done. Tones are already going to be in the background, and then I don't have to worry about smearing, okay? So, you know, that would be one example of imagery second. Imagery has to go first up here because I have to work around it. You know, like that light, I don't want to put tone in there and then have my moon dark, so that was a good idea to do that. But as far as the subject matter, that could have been stamped last, much as I often as I do with my foreground images. I like to kind of add in my tones and everything like that, and then add in my foregrounds in the end, so that I don't have to worry about adding tones around it, and back of it, besides it, or up to it, and worry about the imagery smearing. Okay, so I'll dab right here to prevent the streaking kind of smearing possibility. Okay. By the way, this is what do you call it? A slimline card, you know, 4.5 or 4.25 by 11 inches long. Okay, half sheet. Okay, so just being careful around my figure here. I can get a little bit of the tone into the stamp right there. I do want to create some shadows around the figure so that it blends in with the surrounding. Okay. And I will kind of utilize probably a white paint pen on her later on. Ooh, that's really dark right there, but I'm working around the bottom of the scene, so I usually like to create a strong baseline down there to anchor my subject matter. and to frame off the composition really nicely. Darker corners, top and bottom. Alright, so there that is like that. So you just kind of anchored into the scene, doesn't it? Having that tone down there kind of fix her, and it gives the figure, the image, a little bit of visual weight and kind of opacity. When you make the base of them darker, what you're doing is you're creating kind of a shadow being cast by the figure instead of her just being kind of an outline and kind of the light just shining right through her. Okay, so anyways, I'm getting the feel for this. You can see I'm kind of just, going right up there. That took like all of, I don't know, just a few seconds, right? This doesn't take a long time. I mean, when I say don't rush things, it doesn't mean, take 1 hour to do, a 10-minute process right here. But see, I'm just working this right here and working the tones up a little bit more as I go. Okay. Okay. See that right there? It's kind of a moody looking visual, I think. I like to have things oscillating in here in terms of the light. Yeah, so we're oscillating between light and dark down here. A little bit into the moon area in here. So just so it's not so stark white on those clouds, even though I do have some tone defined within the stamp itself. There's lights and darks within here, but I'm enhancing that with some additional tone, okay? And when I do that, I'm kind of giving myself the opportunity later on to go in and highlight some areas, okay? Which we'll be doing. We'll be bringing in some white ink into the scene, I believe. All right, now, the Stardream should dry on here. I'm guessing overnight, I'm not sure. Like I said, I haven't worked with Clair before, but the regular Stardream or the regular pigment ink on Stardream does dry. At a reasonable rate, not fast or anything like that. But like I said, if we want the inks easy to spread on here, we don't want them to dry very fast. It'd be my preference if it doesn't take days, but I don't know. I'd be willing to wait, I guess. Okay, let's see here. Okay. So I am going to be creating some extra shadows down here, some extra cloud formations, okay? So I'm going like this. Okay, now if I'm doing this in white, I'm adding it this way, and I'm adding some white like that, but I'm going to be adding some of the shadow areas in between clouds. So I'll probably be doing a little bit both, okay? So I'll go like this. Like that. Okay. Yeah, it looks a little bit harsh. Let's take away some of these. Let's sculpt the edge of a cloud template, okay? I just try to make it kind of, not loopy, that's probably not the word, but curvy. Okay. So you go like that. Okay. I went a little bit harsh right there in terms of darkness, but getting the feel for it. I'm getting better at this cloudy type of thing, but I don't know, every time I do like the first one or something like that, masking, I don't know, I have to kind of get my bearings again of where I am. See that right there? It's kind of starting to build up a little bit. The white will really kind of help define it, though. Okay. Like I said, this is kind of, I want more of like this ethereal kind of setting, okay? It's not supposed to look, super realistic, having the clouds go down like that or something like that. It's kind of like you're kind of, doing a kind of a base layer type of, or base kind of elevation, but giving it that feeling that like you're looking over, out from a mountain or something like that over the top of a bunch of clouds down at, lower elevations or something of that sort. It always was a kind of an interesting visual to me, it's when you're looking down at the clouds. I love being up at elevation and looking down and you can see the clouds underneath you. I've never seen it like at moon, the moonlight or something like that, but I don't know, seen it in photos. If you can't see something, or you haven't seen something in real life, think about it. Scenic stamping, you can always stamp it. Things don't always have to be kind of a reference to places you've seen. It could be more of kind of like a dream type of a scenario, or your vision of kind of an ideal, moment in time, you might say. Okay, so something like that. It's little bit too even, it's like, dark, 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 dark. It's like staggered, you know what I mean? I should have some going over a little bit more. And you can kind of blend things out a little bit more, or alter it, whatever. I'm getting a little crease from my cotton ball here. Let me see. You can just kind of rub it and blend it in a little bit. Okay. It's going to be very, very soft when I'm rubbing it with the dry cotton ball, so that looks like pretty good. Still developing technique, or trying to, discovering technique as well. I do want kind of a real soft look in here. It's like moonlight is sculpture. That moonlight always has a different kind of feel than sunlight, wouldn't you say? Okay, actually that looks pretty interesting down here, kind of softening it up a little bit. See this right here, how it's a little bit harsh? Well, I plan to go into that with white, but if I do this, like right around in here, it changes it. Okay, so let's go up here too, and let's give these clouds above the moon a little bit of texturing, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip my mask the opposite way from down there, because now these clouds are being bottom lit, right? The clouds down here are being top lit. See that? If you don't remember to do that, or if you're kind of not sure, it will look good either way. Okay. All right. There we go with that. See that right there? I did that one. Let's blend it in a little bit. Usually when I do those kind of masked paper towel templates, I add that tone in there, and then I go back and I kind of just freehand some additional tone right after it. In this case, doing it in black, but I'll come back here and do it in white as well. Okay, so that is that. It's kind of developing. I'd say the Versafine Clair looked pretty good on here. Okay. All right, now see the tops of these clouds. Let's try to get it with our mask, okay? So, I'm going to come back over it like this now. Okay, so I got these cloud formations this way. Okay, the shadow areas of the cloud formations by going like that and getting up here. But now see the top's ridge of that. I'll have to flip this around and find that. See, I can mask off that, and then I can get that in white. Okay? See the concept there? You gotta alter your mask a little bit, your template or whatever. Okay. I am going to use the Hero Hues, but if it's not white enough, I'm going to switch up to the Brilliance. Okay, the Brilliance is, like I said, it's a faster drying type of ink. Okay, all right, so I kind of have my paper towel mostly on the paper towel, or my cotton ball mostly on the paper towel. Okay, see that? I don't know if you can tell, but it's just a little bit different. You know, the negative space right there is silver, but let me add a little bit of white in here in a couple areas. I think we'll be able to see it when I hold it up to the light a little bit more. The white is kind of dulling out some of the shimmer, okay, because it's muting it. But I really like that look of the combination of white and silver. See that right there? Okay, so that's just silver over here. Okay. I don't know if you can tell or not. It's a little bit. Okay. Yeah, a little bit. You can see a little bit from a kind of a, that distance there. You don't have to do it evenly like that, too. Kind of concentrate it a little bit more in one area. Dab it down, kind of build it up a little bit. Try not to use too much of a big slathering, kind of use your same kind of concept as the black, okay, and use, just kind of build it up. See how I kind of tapped it in that one area for about 10 seconds, and I got the little buildup of ink right there. See how slowly I do it? And that makes it really quite easy. So when people tell me, "Oh, I know it's easier or it's harder than it looks," don't make it into a hard process. Then I don't know. People keep saying that, but then I see what they do, and then it's like they use like a super thick slathering of black ink or white ink or whatever, and it's exactly what I say not to do, because if you just kind of build it up like that, there's nothing to kind of repair, and you don't get anything down there inherently that you're going to have to kind of blend in. Now I do too, I've had to blend in several areas in there, but nothing too hard to blend in terms of a big, huge slathering of ink, super wet ink. So just take it nice and slow, and you'll be much faster as a result, okay? And it is just as easy. Look, there's no kind of trick camera work being done here. If you just don't make yourself, make things hard on yourself. Okay? I mean, that didn't take too long to do at all. I don't know, a couple minutes like that for all those clouds down there. But look at that. Look how dimensional it is. Okay. Okay, now let's get around this moon right here. This is really fun. What you do is you just kind of dab it around in this area right here. And you have white ink on that moon, and you're putting some additional white ink on these clouds around in here. See, that's why I kind of toned them in a little bit, so you can see white ink applied to it, okay? The darker the area down there, the more white's going to show up, so you have to create a little bit of contrast, especially with silver. Silver's a pretty light shade, right, or value, especially when it's reflecting so much light, so kind of knocking it down, a few values here and there makes this so much more visual and obvious. White stands out against dark. Okay, so let's add some more of this white up here. Watch how I'm just going to concentrate it in one little area like this. Okay. And then I'm blending it out a little bit, okay? That one little area, it's like a size of a dime. And then you just kind of lightly spread it out like this, about to the size of a quarter, I'd say. And then you get that little, bit of light. And then, remember when I said you go in and you just kind of blend it out a little bit with a little bit more tone to blend it into the surrounding area. You'll get the feel of it, okay? All right, see that kind of that cloud, that bottom lit cloud there now? It's really interesting how quite a bit different that white stands out against the silver. The silver almost has kind of a warm tinge to it, okay? It's a warm silver, this paper, I think. Especially when you put that white over it. The white is going to be very neutral. But the warmth of the paper kind of stands out by contrast. Alright, I'm starting to smear a little bit of this ink on here, trying to get this white around that moon, okay, because there's a lot of that dark black in there, so I'm going to try not to, smear out too much of that moon, but it's going to be inevitable. So sometimes what I'll try to do is I'll try to build up more ink on here, where it's, quite a bit sloppier, so that it's transferring more of that ink than removing it or smearing it, okay? Okay, let's see. Putting a few little, kind of highlights on some of these clouds, a little bit more ink like that, okay? See, like here, here. What I'll do is I'll just try to really push that impact a little bit more, creating a little bit more contrast, okay? So this is what you do. You don't have to do it all in one fell swoop. You just kind of tone these in, and then, you go back in and you kind of fine tune it a little bit. You build it up like that. It doesn't have to be all done in one fell swoop, that cloud in there. I'm coming back to these areas down here, and those are the ones I first started on. And I'm just building them up a little bit more. Okay, I'm getting all kinds of fingerprints around in here. Okay, let's see. Let's add a little bit of mist around our figure down here, okay? It's like she's in, the moonlight is illuminating the fog around her, giving her kind of a real kind of ethereal look. Hopefully it kind of brings the atmosphere to life a little bit. Okay, so I have that now. So I've gone black, then white. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the black again, okay? All right. First of all, I have fingerprints where I've removed a lot of ink around here, okay? It's the same type of process. You remember to try not to use too much ink, although I just did. This is a brand new pad, so there's definitely a lot of ink on there, on the pad. It's kind of giving it a little bit more depth with that black, okay? Now my big question, I want to add a little bit of foreground on here, and I'm wondering if my imagery will show up on here. An overhanging branch or something to just kind of frame things off a little bit more. And also the word stamp. Will that word stamp out and show up against this background? And what color should I do it in? Should I do it in white or should I do it in black? I'm not quite sure. I don't know. Maybe black right in there. I don't know. Okay, so let's give this, let's give the Versafine Clair a shot with imagery and impressions over an already damp surface right here. Let's give it a shot. I don't know. Okay, I should say that this Versafine Clair will never dry on the foils as far as I know. Unless there's some kind of other type of foil than I've been using, okay? But the Stardreams are pretty good with it. I mean, I can tell, this is already kind of setting up. It's absorbing, the inks. Will this ink from my stamp transfer onto this, though? Let's see. If I get a really dark impression of this, I'm going to be a really big fan of this ink. Yeah, it's not too bad, right? It's not too bad at all. It's not 100% black though. It's much more of a I'd give it a 75% gray maybe, which is perfectly acceptable to me. When it's down there in the 30-40% grays or something like that, for a black, that's pretty anemic. And especially when I want something to really stand out against this background right here. That one stamped out a little bit lighter, but I was stamping it heavily in my very, richly applied perimeter. Okay, this was stamped out against this lighter background right there, except for the corner, okay? So let's follow this down with some additional framing, okay? When you put this imagery around something like a moon, it frames the moon off so much nicer. Okay. This is the oak branch, by the way. About 90% of the time, I only use it for parts, rather than the whole branch. Okay. it's kind of framing around that so far. Okay. This is pretty dark right here. Maybe I'll go down a little bit lower like this. Okay. It's almost like hands or something like that reaching down, but not spooky ones, okay? It's like kind of an emotional blanket, you know, having these kind of softer leaves around her like that. And let's go about right here. I don't want to put it right in her face or anything like that. I want the image to be able to, the figure to be able to breathe, you know, and whatnot. Go like this too. I've made this side a little bit airier than this side, okay? For different applications and different purposes. You try to give variation to your designs, okay? In the spirit of how they'll be used to give the greatest amount of possibilities and usage to a design. Okay, so I've kind of, it's unbalanced, well, it's fairly well balanced, but it's not symmetrical, okay? I don't want kind of complete symmetry in there. All right, so that is black on there. And I'm wondering about the Moonlight as Sculpture stamp. And if I should do it in, oh, I get a smaller, I need a smaller acrylic block, I think. I don't know how it is I do it, but I often lose my my acrylic blocks that I typically have all right next to me. Okay, here we go. I'm just eyeballing this on here. I was telling someone that my blocks are pretty basic. They don't even have that grid. Sometimes that grid would be useful. Okay, so I just don't think white is going to show up against that. I think I need to do this in black, but where do I put it? I have space right here. But maybe I need to make it a little bit whiter there before I apply this black into there. I don't expect this quote stamp to stamp out perfectly white either. I mean, black, okay? Because I am going to be stamping it over so much of this white pigment ink. Okay, so just opening it up a little bit here in terms of contrast. It was a little bit dark in there, and I didn't think that some of the quote would show up in there, so just white it out. And hopefully we'll be ready to go. I don't know. Okay, let's see. I have to get kind of my bearings on using a certain quote because it's going to be heavier on one side than another. So I have the quote down here, so I need to give it a little bit more pressure. Let's see. Pretty good. All right. It's going to be a little bit off center, but that's what I'm just going to have to do on here. I think it might look better a little bit off center anyway. Oh, good. You don't want to press too hard, you don't want to press too soft, you know. I'd say press a little bit harder than softer, though, just so you make sure that you get the full impression. If you're using your stamp positioners, you can hit it, several times, though, right? Okay. So I think that looks pretty good right there. Moonlight is sculpture, doesn't it? Isn't it kind of an appropriate quote, for the scene right here, I think. Okay, so let's do some fine tuning in here. I enjoy every aspect of doing these scenes, but the fine tuning is really fun. I love doing, like little highlights and whatnot. The Miaosun Sun acrylic paint pen, okay? I think it's the same exact thing as the Artistro 0.7 millimeter. If these aren't coming out of the same factory, I'd be shocked. I know at least, the barrel is. I don't if there are different types of inks in there. I don't know, maybe, but I really doubt it. Why would they do that? Okay, so where do we add this? Let's go in here and add a few little highlights. You have to shake these up every time you use them. Gotta wipe off the tip a little bit. Sometimes they get a little sloppy. I don't know. My first one didn't get quite as sloppy. And always have the cap on when you're shaking them up. Otherwise, you're going to be kind of flicking a little bit of paint around. Okay, so let's start around. You got to be a little bit careful, in terms of touching. I was good with touching the sides of it, but not after I get the impressions on it. I don't want to blur, my oak branch around. Get your pens flowing off card, okay? And then, like right around the moon, there's going to be a few more highlights. Silver line clouds, right? See, my little highlights are on. It's not going to be real visible. It's more of a little detail like that. But see, over here, you're going to be bottom lighting the clouds, okay? See, this is on the top side of those clouds. And that's the way I did the design, too, You can see where there's lighter areas on the top of the clouds, and then there's lighter areas on the bottom of the clouds, where the clouds are above the, the moon light source. Okay, so you just kind of have to follow, what you see. Observe for light, okay? We're used to looking at a lot of outline images that don't have any defined light on them, okay? They're not tonal designs, most designs out there. My designs are tonal, and then I include lighting on them, light and shade. I work a lot on my light and shade so that it gives everyone a head start, including me, lighting and highlighting and shadows too. Okay. Alright, so those are little highlights on those clouds like so. What you do is you put a few more right around that edge of the cloud. Then you kind of spread apart your dots. You kind of taper them into away from the light, okay? So, that being said, see this sort of like cloud that I've defined right here, right? I can put a few little dots on it like that. It's just little highlights like that. They're fun little highlights. They're subtle, right? Let me show you up close. See that? See those little dots like that? I mean, they look kind of weird when you're looking at it like that, but this is it. At arm's distance, it just, it's a little bit of a shimmer on that cloud. Okay, I can Add it down here in these lightest of areas, okay? A little bit more on the top of the cloud, and then I spread those dots around out here a little bit more, okay? Alright, now, where this is really going to be quite effective, I believe, is, let's see, I need to define the figure here. Okay, so she goes like, I didn't get that line, so I'm going to have to draw it in. Okay, so I'm not doing a great job here. I need to kind of, I think I need to, yeah, what I'll do is I'll put some of these highlights on here, which look a little bit too harsh, but what I'll do is I'll soften my line work up with a little Q-tip and some pigment ink. See that? I don't want a line up there. I want some kind of continuous tone in there. It wouldn't have been bad to, you know, do what I did up here and kind of put that tone down here, you know, to begin with. But I don't know, with this figure in here, it's a little bit harder to kind of tell exactly where the figure is going to go than the moon. The moon was very obvious. You know, it's just a little ball. But this is, you know, it got so many different lines in it. Okay, so see, on what I'm doing is I'm just kind of reiterating the lighting that's already been established and defined by the master engraver that, you know, drew this image originally. So they were giving me a lot of cues on where to add that additional illumination in here, and shadow too. Okay, so okay, so here's where my fine tuning is going to have to come into play. White pigment ink right in here. It's just too harsh of a line right there. Okay, so let's make some space here. Okay, there we go. All right, so blotting this off. See, I'm getting some ink on here. I'm taking my own advice and not going in here with a big blob of ink. I'm blotting it off a little bit first, right? So I'm working very lightly, you know, with a very dry application of that white, so I'm not putting this big blob down. And then what does it become? It goes from a hard process. Well, I don't know about hard, but, you know, a much more instant process to a little bit more of a gradual one, and becomes an easier process. Practice easy processes for, you know, more kind of predictable results, I should say. Okay, so adding this down. Kind of on her, the side that's facing the light, okay? I'm kind of giving her a softer look as well, in those harsher shadows, that are inherent in the design. I'm kind of, making some of those gray instead of just, black. Alright, look at that. She has a nice glow to her now, I would say. And that's a nice response to our light up here. So I'm going to take advantage of this here too for more of that targeted type of highlight right here on these clouds. Going with the cotton ball, it's a little bit of it's a pretty wide applicator. Not real wide, it's like the size of a quarter when I'm using it maybe. But I can go in here and just kind of give these areas in here just a nice little, very strategic glow on my cloud. So you hit these little areas here and there, and it just makes certain areas kind of pop out, okay? It's not going to pop out if you have it everywhere. Then it doesn't stand out quite as much. So you just kind of oscillate things. You have it here and there, and I think it just looks so much more effective that way because you're playing contrasts with one another. If everything was light and soft, it wouldn't look as light and soft because you don't have it going up against the dark and hard or whatever, dark and crisp. So we have the dark and crisp oak branches in here, plus the soft and light, illuminated clouds or mist or whatever this is, fog. Okay, let me take a look at this now. I think that looks okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a little bit of variation here from a textural standpoint. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a few little kind of sparkly dots in here, okay? I mean, I don't think I want to do this with the Dr. Martens bleed proof white on this one. Okay, so what these are, I don't know. They could just be little orbs of light. I'm going to have them glowing in here with the use of some pigmenting, but just from a textural standpoint, what I'm doing is I'm adding another layer over the top of it, okay? The trees were kind of a layer. Then you get the moonlight in the background. So it was kind of two layers in here of imagery, right? You have the foreground and background. What this does, or just kind of splatter painting like I often do, for snow or something like that, what I'm doing is I'm adding another layer over the top, so, and it's light over dark. So I'm creating, I don't know, kind of a textural contrast, another layer, so you're creating distance, and it just, I don't know, it's just visual interest here, okay? All right, so we don't want blobs, right? We really want to blot it off to where there's almost nothing on here, okay? And as you tap on there, you build up a little bit of tone, and it creates that little bit of glow, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 very soft taps, and you get like a 5% glow of white, okay? See that right there? Get used to working with almost nothing. All right? As opposed to a lot on your, as far as your inks go. And then you see these little glowing little orbs. I'll leave some of them just plain, a little dot just for contrast, or maybe it represents that little orb farther back in the distance or something like that, where it's not so kind of illuminated. Doesn't matter which ones, just, variation. I notice people are starting to utilize this, and I think that's a really great thing, because you're adding kind of sharp and soft into your scenes, or cards in general. It's not just for, scenic scenes, but these little dots like this look great around word stamps, anything like that. But it's one way in a piece to add textural contrast, and having something soft. Most things in rubber stamping are very sharp, because we're doing very sharp, crisp impressions where, we want, I don't know, colors within the lines and everything like that, where they don't break out of the lines. But this is a way to go back in and to add that softer kind of hand-done feel into a scene. And look how effective that is in terms of just kind of a textural statement, okay? I probably have mine spaced out a little bit too carefully on here, where maybe a little bit more variation would be a little bit more effective in terms of variety, but so be it. Okay, so let's go in and let's add yet another layer in here. How about that? Kind of a textural statement. Okay, let's see. Make sure my glue is working. I'll go on a couple of these, or maybe about 5 of these. How about that? And I'll add a few little crystals to my scene card. Plus, you send out a card like this, and it has kind of some nice range in textures and whatnot. That's all great. But if it has little crystals on it, isn't that kind of extra fun for the recipient to see? Anytime you have something kind of sparkly or reflective on a surface, it becomes a little bit more of an interactive type of thing with the viewer of the piece, isn't it? They hold it up to the light, they turn it at different angles, they look closer at it, and I don't know, it just makes for a fun piece. It might be one of those things where you kind of gauge it to where you can think about it in terms of almost like, what would you as a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old find interesting about a given piece, and then employ those types of employ that type of media, techniques, whatever, into the piece that you're working on. All right, where did my gem picker go? I need my gem picker for my gems here that I'm going to glue on here. All right, old-fashioned gem picker. What happened to it? Okay, there's some different sizes here. I'll use one or two different sizes. Okay, these little wax pencil is the thing that came with this. And they work okay, but that Marvy one's so much nicer. I'll show you what I'm doing here, okay? So just kind of putting them down. See those little sparkly little crystals there? I don't think I can go too small. Well, I guess you could. I'll go with a really tiny one. What I'm doing is I'm just kind of poking down into my my thing here, and I'm praying I'm grabbing one of the crystals in the right direction. Okay, I want kind of a smaller bead of glue. I don't have any small beads of glue here. They're all kind of thick. That one's kind of bathing in, you know, almost like a pool of glue. All right, that one grabbed it pretty easily. I don't know, I might have to add more of these. These are looking pretty cool, I guess. I don't know, they're not, like I said, they're not on here for any other reason than, I think they're just fun to use. It's something that I never would have done. I don't even know if I would have used these a couple years ago. I always thought it'd be kind of interesting, especially for a night sky, of having something. But man, I am into the reflective types of media now. Okay, can you see those three on there? 1, 2, 3. Here's one right here. Here's a really tiny one right here, but see this little twinkly, this kind of shining back at you. Here's one right here. I have one down here around her. Might be kind of interesting to have more kind of around her face, right? Kind of glowing in this, but moonlight is sculpture. I don't know, you can see some of these kind of reflecting back at you a little bit. But you also kind of get the idea of the silver paper, okay? So let's see what the original silver paper starts off with this, okay? And we can see just how reflective it is, okay? Now a lot of that reflective paper has been covered up here, but I just, you're not going to get that kind of degree of illumination if you're going on white paper. Not that the white isn't bad, I'm using most of my stamping live as white. It just has a different feel. It would probably be lighter in certain areas, having started off with a white piece of paper, like that. but that kind of that iridescence like that, I mean, there's something kind of cool about that in terms of the reflective quality of that given ink. And then you can see on her, that's white right there, with the white paint pen, and then the addition of the additional white pigment ink. But do you see how I've kind of filled in with her? But see how soft she is? My camera's even having a hard time focusing on her because she's so soft and kind of glowing like that. And that's just by dabbing this on here, not by putting big blobs of white pigment ink, but just by dabbing on a little bit at a time and building it up, from, super light values of it like that. So I can't just show you like that. I have to kind of go like that to give you a really good idea. And that's where that kind of interactive type of aspect of starting off with a reflective type of surface, or reflective inks too. You could do this on a darker piece of paper, but let's say using white ink and silver ink over the top of it too. So there's different ways to work on these types of surfaces like that, and a little bit of a different approach. You probably get a little bit of different results too, but nevertheless, really fun to explore. Okay, so this was the 105-pound Stardream, and we're talking about my first time with the Versafine Clair. Big fan of that, I guess, instantly. Love at first sight. Not the Brilliance, the Hero Hues Unicorn, okay. And two different inks. Did I use any others? I don't think so. I think just two different inks on here, okay. And then we have our crystals, we have our Q-tip, couple different cotton balls, used one for the black, one for the white, okay? Really super expensive materials and hard to find, right? Cotton balls and Q-tips, I'm joking. But all that's very easy. A lot of you have the Versafine Clair, a lot of you have a white pigment ink. A lot of you... Why did this just show up right here? Here's my gem picker, it's right in front of me on that thing. But a lot of you are asking me about my white paint pens, okay? So you have the Artistro ones, and I've already lost my white one, but that was the Miaosun. So if you've got, one of these so far, you can use that. If you didn't, I don't know, you might even be able to get some white colored pencil on there, I wouldn't go white colored pencil and maybe put the glue dot on top of that. I think the wax of the colored pencil, but you can get certain types of effects on here. This paper has enough tooth for colored pencils, at least in some capacity, for different marks on there. But fun stuff and fun to play around with. I'd always recommend it. I think something like this on different colored paper would look really fantastic as well. Dark blue, the lapis lazuli with this scene like this would look really quite dramatic. You'd be starting off with a much darker paper. The white ink applied on top of it would show up that much stronger because of the contrast. So, I don't know, play around with it and explore it. And, I don't know, take your time blending in your inks nice and gradually, and build it out. Go back to white, add that in. Go back to black, blend it in, and if that needs even more blending, go back to white. Don't make it kind of a linear process. Utilize the media for what you need it for, and sometimes kind of going around in a circular process, adding, refining, is the ticket to kind of getting the end result you're going after. In my case, it was going for that kind of that soft, kind of glowing light, that would be really indicative of, I don't know, moonlight, you know what I mean? It's just a kind of a softer light in general, because it's reflected light. It's not the light source, okay, so it's not so harsh. Okay, so once again, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Drop me a note in the comment section if you have any comments or questions. Thanks for watching the channel.